Goed dat je luistert naar een nieuwe aflevering van Paul de Vries vanuit de podcaststudio in Ede met de missie de online automotive beter te maken. Dit doet Paul met de volgende partners met dezelfde missie: Marktplaats, Calldrip, CARMEN Automotive BDC, Findio, Used Car Controller en tweedehands.be.
Okay, so today I'd like to talk about a few things that are happening globally and then some things in the US that I think could be applicable here in the future. There are some unique things happening in the automotive industry, and in some ways Europe is farther along in certain things from the automotive industry, and in the US. So it's no longer one is considered more advanced or something than the other. Are we still too hot on this mic? Are we getting ringing going on? I don't know if we can turn that down. It just seems a little hot. This is the agenda we have, which includes the famous coffee break, which is very important to all Dutch people. Who has more than 7 cups of coffee a day? 7? You're my friends, thank you. Okay, that's very good. So we're going to have some fun today. I just want to encourage you, if you'd like to keep in connection with what's going on in the US with retailing, I have a new LinkedIn newsletter. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, connect with me, or if you want to stay secret and not be my friend, which I'm not sure why you wouldn't, there's a new feature in LinkedIn for a newsletter. I have about 8,000 automotive professionals, mostly in the US, but I know that there's great opportunities for us to learn from each other, so please make sure you do that. Today, I'm going to ask for some uncomfortable requests, like you to talk to me, volunteer some information, share what you're thinking. And I know that maybe culturally is not normal, because sometimes people don't want to be embarrassed, or maybe my question isn't a good question. But the only way we're going to learn today is if we're going to learn together, and we have some people from different markets, from the OEM side, from the dealer side, so let's learn together today. My agenda is not to find fault with any party, whether it's an OEM, a dealer holding, a dealer, or a vendor, but to talk about some of the challenges that are clearly happening in the auto industry. I call it the new normal. I've been talking with Paul, obviously, and some of my colleagues here in the EU about changes in the marketplace. This is something that you may be aware of here also, the changes in gas prices. This is just a relative increase in price because obviously we're on a different system. You're selling in liters and we're in gallons, so who knows that conversion. But it's been a big change in your home heating costs. Does anybody, their heating bill at their home? Has anybody just turned off the heat? Say, I'm not paying the bill anymore. Paul did that. It was very freezing last night in his house. He said he was being economically conservative. But how about used car prices here in the Netherlands? Have they gone crazy over the last year? Dealers are like, yeah, this is so good for us. Yeah, this is a great time. Home prices have gone crazy. My wife and I bought a new construction in a development in Florida. And we moved in October of 2020. So we're talking about 18 months ago. And the house has gone up 100%. Yeah. I'm very proud that my wife told me to buy that house.
It's a wise one.
Yeah, wise move. Of course, saying those things are somewhat silly, right? Because in Holland, you've seen housing prices, but then you say, if I sold the house, where am I going to go? Yeah. Right, just buy something else that's crazy prices. This is Audi of Lakeland in Florida. This is one of those unique places in the US that during COVID, they didn't believe COVID existed. True. They were also avid Trump supporters in this town. So, I talked to Gino Walsh from the Cavalli Group, and I asked him, how many cars do you have on your lot today that are not sold? 5. Normally, he has something like 75 to 100 vehicles. For many dealers in the U.S., the new car is staying on the lot for 3 days, maximum. So we're in unique times. For the first time in the U.S., dealers are making money selling new cars in a big way. Prior to COVID, a dealer's net profit from new cars was anywhere from 10 to 15% of total profit. Now it's like 50%. Very strange times. Limited supply, supply and demand. Are dealers charging over the list price for new cars here in the Netherlands? That happen here? Yeah. Oh, it's happening in the States. Yeah. Now, some people think that that's evil, right? How can a dealer sell a car for over list price? And when we say list price, in the U.S. we say MSRP for manufacturer's suggested retail price. Suggested. Now in the U.S., the G-Wagon, the Mercedes G-Wagon is popular. Is it a popular car here? No? Okay. So people are spending $75,000 to $100,000 over MSRP. And there's a big list of people waiting to spend that much. It's crazy. But for like a Toyota truck or a Dodge truck, $5,000 or $10,000 over MSRP. Very strange times. Very strange times indeed. And for the first time in a long time, there's been a big jump in dealer profits. So the average dealer in the U.S. had a pre-tax profit of $3 million, double that the year before. Are there any car salesmen? Car salesmen here? Right. Any general managers of dealership? General manager of a dealer? What's your name?
Fritz.
Vincent?
Fritz.
Fritz. Fritz, imagine you were the general manager of a Mercedes-Benz store in California last year. As the store manager, could you estimate, based on some of the data I just showed you, how much your salary would be in California? Take a guess. Anybody want to guess?
$200,000.
200,000? Anybody else want to guess?
With or without bonus?
What's that?
With or without the bonus?
Total in, with bonus. We only have one person who's talking to me. See, you said you were going to talk to me today.
1 million.
1 million. You're not even close. $4 million.
In a year?
For the general manager of the store. Why? In this publicly held dealer group, the general manager gets 10% of the net, after all expenses, net profit. They made $40 million in one store in California. Time to move, right? I need a job relocation service. No, the last 2 years, the average general manager probably in most dealer groups is making $500,000. Most over in bigger markets over $1 million. Very weird times. Very weird times indeed. Are you familiar with the spotty car?
Yep.
For me in the U.S., that sounds like potty car, or something with a dog. But maybe it is because it's a dog in itself. This is a very interesting trend. The manufacturers wanting to be in control of the used car business. Now, in the U.S., this is dangerous ground. Because for most dealers, prior to COVID, they weren't making money on the new cars. They were making most of their profits from used cars and service, correct? Those who are in the business. So, hold on, why, Mr. Manufacturer, you want to be in my most profitable? Now, I don't know if the dealers here in Holland are happy about this model or not. I will not ask you that question because, maybe there's judgment here in the room. But this model was just announced, similar model, just announced in the US by General Motors called CarBravo. But they took it even another step forward. They basically said, we want you to list your cars on carbravo.com. Like, do we need another portal? Is every manufacturer going to have a portal? Or is there going to be 15 portals? And what if the manufacturer says you can't advertise your cars on Marktplaats or Autoscout or Hospital? Oh, wouldn't that be a problem? Not for the listing companies, but what about the consumer experience? But GM went even farther. They said, if you're going to be on CarBravo, we're going to provide you with the software and tools to do the entire transaction on our platform, called the Digital Retailing Platform, developed by a company called Tekion. You may or may not have heard about this company. Very controversial company. The CEO is a former Tesla senior executive. They've decided to come in automotive to build an end-to-end retailing platform. They have not proven themselves in scale yet. GM chose them to be the platform for all electric vehicles in the United States with zero track record. Interesting. Now, if you're a dealer group, if you're a Chevrolet dealer or a Cadillac dealer in the US, you already have your own DMS, you already have your own CRM, you already have your own sales process. In the US, this is the first time a manufacturer has said you have to use our tools and no other for this platform. Again, very big change. The auto industry, as a result of COVID and supply chain, and now, I even think, because of supply chain, the manufacturers feel they have the most power over the dealer network than ever. That's my belief. And so today we're going to talk about some of these unique challenges and what we need to do to work closer together to meet the needs of the OEMs and the dealers and the dealer holding groups, because the dealer holding groups have the biggest disadvantage. The dealer holding groups in many ways have tremendous advantage, but if I see the market going in a certain direction, dealer holding groups will lose the most unless the OEMs and the dealers work together. to come up with a different solution. You see, this is a problem for a dealer holding group, and in the US we just use the word dealer group, but Lithia, public company, AutoNation, public company, Asbury, public company, with hundreds of stores, with a training process, with a technology platform. Could you imagine if every OEM said, you need to use our end-to-end system, and all of a sudden, you have an integration nightmare. Years and years of developing dealer group reporting and sales process and performance reporting. Now, each OEM is going to decide to create their own retail platform. Now, in other parts of the world, like China, the manufacturers have end-to-end retailing platforms because that marketplace is relatively new. Tesla has an end-to-end platform. But what about all the thousands of dealers who've invested in technology and process and training and branding? Is it okay just to cancel all that and say, EV customers are different? Are they? Meaning I've bought internal combustion engines or ICE cars my whole life. My next car, maybe I'm going to buy an EV. Did I change over that? The early adopters for Tesla were probably slightly different. But if most manufacturers are moving in the next 10 years to almost 100% EV or mostly EV, then that argument doesn't hold. Is the EV customer a different customer? No. So why tell dealers they're a different customer so we have to throw out everything we developed and go to an absolutely clean platform? These are some of the questions that we're going to address today. So before I go through my deck, go ahead.
In Germany, the big dealer holdings are fighting legally with the OEMs to say this cannot be the future. How is that in the States? Because in Holland there's, I don't know, nothing really going on, I guess, but in Germany they are really fighting now before the war starts.
Yes.
How is that in the States?
Well, in the US, I'm trying. You're going to see something today for the first time, probably, because we have strong dealer holding groups, plus the National Auto Dealer Association. But tell you the truth, I haven't seen a coordinated pushback. Okay, now, individual states, like Florida, my home state, has very strong dealer laws, and now we're seeing what the OEMs are doing, and now going and getting the laws updated to reflect, for example, over-the-air updates, right? So in Florida, if the OEM is charging the consumer for an over-the-air update software feature, there was no protection that the dealer would share in that revenue. There was nothing on the books. No one ever thought of that before, right? Now the laws are going, in Florida specifically, that the OEM has to share with the dealer that profit center. What I'm concerned about is binary thinking. I hope Germany doesn't take the approach that I'm going to challenge today, which is the dealer says, well, we have laws and we have protections and we're never going to change. I think that there is some compromise. But the question is where does the line stop?
And is it a losing game in the end, overall, right?
It is a losing game there. Why? Let me just, and thank you for raising your hand. Others, watch, he did that. It was okay. He didn't drop it. For example, Stellantis. Not one of my favorite manufacturers in the US because of one thing. For 2 or 3 years, they told the dealers, we want you to learn how to sell cars online. And we used to call these tools digital retailing tools. You had CDK, you had Gabagoo, you had CarNow, you had Cox. So let's just say 10 different companies. And Stellantis picked 5 or so companies and said, these are, pick which one you want. and build process, be more transparent, give the customers the buying experience that they want. And things were going great until one day where 3,000 Stellantis dealers got an email. Cancel your digital retailing vendor and sign up for eShop by Carzato. And I was like, who's Carzato? I haven't seen one dealer in the US use Carzato. So I looked at the marketing material. This is why I wasn't happy with Stellantis. They made all these amazing claims that in the pilot, dealers saw like 150% increase in that. I'm like, this is amazing. But when I inspected the tool, it was a basic payment calculator. It couldn't calculate taxes and fees. But the other tools in the program could actually get 99% to a transaction. Carzato was comparatively an infant. I was like, why would you surprise your dealer network? So it started with voluntarily. And then the calls started coming. And then it was, we're pulling all financial support from the other 5. And then it was, you have to put it on your website. And now, because no one wants to use it, they're giving the dealers $500 for a consumer credit if the customer fills out the credit application online using Carzato. Why? Does the manufacturer have to give any money away in this environment? No. They need to pump up the numbers. So it gets even worse. I have dealers who call me up. I got the guy from Carzato. We're going to get more cars in our next delivery if we put it on. So you ask the question, is it inevitable and dealers shouldn't fight? Because in the end, could the manufacturer hold over inventory and things? But when the dealers experience that, you understand trust is broken? The most valuable thing in a manufacturer-franchise relationship is trust. That's why I'm hoping that the dealers don't push back and say, we're never going to change. We have to change. But I'm hoping that the conversation is one where we dance a little to understand each other's perspective, what we need to change, and then find the best way to meet the needs of both groups. So what else do you see as the biggest challenges over the next year or two? Anybody else want to just share a concern that you have? Go ahead.
Well, the OEMs try to take over some of your distribution network, which saves a lot of cost. But we want to stay in control, looking at our region, and cities, and customers.
So like the agency model.
Right.
Does anybody not like the agency model? Who doesn't like that agency model? Anyone? Look, no one wants to raise their hand. See, you're afraid. Everyone in this room loves the agency model. Is that what you're telling me? Everyone? All right, one more time. How many people, let me phrase the question differently because you're politically correct culture here. How many people have concerns about the viability of the agency model? Thank you, thank you. There's people still who didn't want to raise their hand to that. Are they filming? Is my boss going to see that? I understand the agency model is a way to reduce costs in the distribution network because maybe EV cars are more expensive and maybe they're trying to keep, this is what the manufacturer's saying, keep the costs more competitive. But the question becomes, at what point does the OEM want you to be their agent, but then also compete with you as a used car dealer.
Steeds meer collega's gebruiken Used Car Controller. Taxeren, calculeren, publiceren of auto's verhandelen met je persoonlijke handelsplatform? Met 1 abonnement geeft Used Car Controller je controle over alle kritische gebruikte autoprocessen. Zo maakt Used Car Controller je tot sterkste in je vak. Findio is de merkonafhankelijke Automotive partner. Findio is er voor uw klanten en u. Zo kunt u zorgeloos ondernemen en uw rendement verbeteren. Uw online leads opvolgen binnen 30 seconden? Dat kan met Calldrip. Vraag direct een demo aan.
Interesting line. Like, how much permission do we get? What else? So agency model, anything else? Any concerns? You guys are very happy, life is good, we'll finish like in 15 minutes then? Is that? There's no other concerns in this room about our automotive industry in the next 2 years. See, I told you, I asked you to be my friend. I asked you to talk to me. No one wants to talk. Paul, I'm not coming back next year. All right. Let me just mention one other thing, because some people are marketing, and you know that I do a lot of time with marketing. But all of you know this thing called Google My Business and what it looks like, say, on a mobile phone. And if you look at Google My Business on your phone for Paragon Honda, Brian Benstock has been here speaking before, your phone will look like that. But that's not how it looks like in the United States. See, Google's blocking what is relatively a big change for dealers in the US, and that's live inventory inside the Google My Business listing and live inventory ads in position 0 in search. So in the US, if you do year, make, model, or model trim, or used Fiat 500, whatever. Normally, New Autokopen, Auto Scout, listing, gas pedal, normally the classified show, maybe some dealer holding groups, of course your ads. But what's showing now in the US in position 0 is a carousel. And this carousel actually comes from the Google My Business inventory feed. So what Google did first was to enable live inventory in Google My Business, and once they have the feed and enough dealers with the inventory, they added a new advertising unit, which, as you can see, on a desktop or a mobile phone, takes a pretty prominent position. So this most likely will be coming to other markets. I think it's in the UK. I think it's already in the UK, but it's not here. And I was talking to my colleague, it's not in Germany yet either, right? Okay. So just keep... What's that?
You have already Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like the Facebook Marketplace or AIA ads, you know, automotive inventory ads in Facebook, but into the Google search. So actually when you click on that carousel, a mini virtual VDP comes up, and then you can go to the dealer's site. Lots of change.
Is it also AMP related? Google
You know, it's interesting. You asked the question. The question was, is it like Google AMP technology, which is the instant mobile loading? I know it's super fast, but I don't know if Google's been talking so much about AMP as the underlying tech, but it could be. But what's interesting is that dealers who are using these inventory ads, right now Google has a minimum spend in the US So you have to have maybe like a $2,000 a month investment, but the ads are working very well. And you would understand why. Question? And by the way, thank you. Go ahead.
You know how the dealers in the US feed the inventory feed from Google?
Yes. So it's a little messy. So what Google has decided to do is partner with the website platform companies and the inventory management companies to do the feed. But my friends in this space say that it's still a little shaky. You know, they can set up a feed, and then the dealer, calls, hey, where are my cars? And you almost like have to kick it, like the old days of your computer. Those of you who are old enough with no hair or gray hair, you used to kick that IBM PC, like, oh, it's working now. So they've decided to partner with the people who typically handle inventory. So if I was an inventory management company here in Holland, I'd definitely be talking to Google now and say, hey, when is this technology coming into the Netherlands? We'd like to be a feed provider, especially if any marketing agencies here in the room, marketing agency where you're running Google ads, this would absolutely be priority to understand. So, go ahead, question.
Question, because Google wants to start Google Cars in Holland. What's the idea? Google Cars is not coming to the market, it's pure Google now.
Great question. So in the US, a number of years ago, Google started the Google Cars project. In the US, a guy named Michael Rose was the head of that. And what Google quickly found out is that dealers' inventory feeds are dirty. Like the data's not correct, they have the wrong option codes in the DMS. Google was very concerned. The reason why Google stopped it, they thought there was some liability hosting a website with cars with prices and configurations that weren't true. And they realized, I don't think they, and maybe this room doesn't realize how difficult it is to run a marketplace website, with the different data feeds. So they stopped that. Now, recently, they've started again with a different concept. I think that since Google My Business, this is my belief, since Google My Business is the #1 best local advertising tool for a dealer, it generates the most referral traffic and the most phone calls and the most leads from any other referral source. They said, well, couldn't this kind of be like a mini website? Like, we're not in the website business, but what's missing? Inventory. So this could be a multi-year strategy where that, when you add digital retailing, couldn't the websites be really thin? Like, there's the ad, and on the button it says, buy now. And it is powered by a digital retailing platform. Could Google say then, instead of a per click, I go to a per sale model? Well, I don't know. But in the US, we're probably at the point where a legal binding contract, and more states are approving electric signatures. So in the US, it's a state by state. Some states accept the electronic signature, some do not. So companies like Carvana, actually, the driver is a legal notary with a pile of papers. Okay? In the future, if more states allow the full e-contracting, then why wouldn't Google eventually, like they do in the hotel and airlines, when you book something through Google, they get that piece of the transaction. Are we moving closer to that? We don't know. But surely Google has the incentive to be in the middle of this massive industry worldwide. There was a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the Facebook Marketplace, that's a little bit the same then in the Google My Business, because you have to add also differently into, if you want to be into the Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, so, Facebook Marketplace, it is a little different, right, in the sense that consumers are a little bit programmed to go to either a portal or do a local search. I'm not sure, Facebook Marketplace works for our clients, but it's still not a default thinking mode for most consumers. So I think Facebook eventually would love to be more in the automotive sector. They recently created an automotive team in the US for Facebook Autos. Bob Lanham, you can connect with him on LinkedIn, Bob Lanham, Lanham, very nice guy. But we don't know too much more about their plans. Okay. This is really good. Paul, this is like a record. I mean, we got like 6 conversations started today.
Right.
I feel like a proud father.
Right.
Yes.
Final question. So if I understand correctly, the Google feed, when it's launched in the Netherlands, should be fed by DMS. So it cannot be scraped or took over from a classified website or whatsoever.
It looks like it's coming from the inventory, the people who in the US feed the websites. It's not scraped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yep. And I just understanding Google's concerns about accurate data, I'm sure they wouldn't want to scrape. Okay. I will tell you the early adopters of these ads were the third party, the marketplace websites, which you may think is a conflict. Are you now friends with the devil? But you'll see Edmunds, Carvana, and others that even Cars.com, we're testing these ad formats to see the cost structure and the actual ROI. So if we're going to admit whether you wanted to raise your hand or not, there are a lot of concerns with the agency model compared to traditional. There's very interesting concerns about OEMs moving into the used car space. There's a lot of concerns. Is every OEM going to create their own used car portal? I mean, there's a lot of questions. And has anybody read this book? No? Okay. Do you guys still read books? I just wanted to check that. I was at a dealer meeting, and I've written 9 books. And I said, how many people really don't read books anymore? And like over half the audience just said, honest, we don't read books. And I was like, thank you for that encouraging news. I like to read when I'm traveling on a plane because life is kind of busy. So I've been reading this book, and I want to recommend that this book be read at the OEM level, at the dealer holding group level. It's very important because those two parties have the most to gain and the most to lose. The author talks about the value of rethinking. And the book opens up with some huge mistakes that were made. In specific, in the US, the 2 space flights that resulted in the deaths of the astronauts, these mistakes were absolutely preventable. They were preventable, but the culture inside of NASA, the National Aeronautical Space Association, NASA, was so focused on deadlines and success, no one was ever celebrated for saying, let's slow down. There could be a problem, which could mean a delay. This was, we don't delay. We just do. We just run. We go forward. This is our culture, performance culture, performance culture. And obviously other stories like the BlackBerry, the BlackBerry had many opportunities at one time to really become a dominant player in today's messaging world, but missed it, didn't believe in messaging phone, and even the iPhone was almost missed because Steve Jobs didn't really see it. But the difference in the Apple culture is that they were trained to challenge common beliefs based on data. So the author asked the question early on, are you actively open-minded? Does anybody work with people who are closed-minded? Anybody work with people who are closed-minded? Are they sitting next to you? Are they sitting next to you? I see a few hands pointing. If we're going to change automotive retail so that we have a win-win scenario, we have to be actively open-minded. And the author talks about 4 types of people, and the author suggests that the best mindset is that of a scientist. Does anybody come from a science background? You studied science at all? You know what's interesting about people in science? When they get a call from the other side of the world that says, hey Paul, I know everyone's been following your theory for the last 2 years. You're wrong. A scientist will say, really? Where did I make a mistake? Tell me, show me. A true scientist, what did I miss? That's amazing. Is that true? And a scientist listens because, listen, the only way you could prove that you're actually learning is when you find out you were wrong. Think about that. The only way you can prove that you're learning is when you find out you were wrong. And so the author talks about these personality types. Come on, clicker. Come on. Being able to admit that you're wrong. Honestly, we're all friends here in this room. Does anybody hate being wrong? Just hate it? Come on. Okay. Maybe I will heal you today. Okay? It's not so much about being wrong as how you react to being wrong. And I'm just going to share with you that I was wrong once. Okay, maybe more than once. But remember, I've been in automotive marketing now for 17 years, and I have an agency, and we were following Google's playbook for Google Ads, until the dealer holding group really challenged me in the summer of 2000, in the summer of 2021, last summer. And he said, Brian, I know you're supposed to know everything, but my Google Ads performance year over year continues to decline. My costs go up. Something's wrong. And I said, oh, maybe the campaigns aren't set up properly. I looked at the campaigns, and the campaigns were set up according to what Google suggested. The dealer was not happy. He says, something's wrong, you got to find out. And I started digging, and I was like, wow, I was wrong. More importantly, Google was wrong about automotive in a huge way. The way in which Google, still to this day, teaches agencies to optimize advertising campaigns for auto dealers is wrong. And I documented that, and Paul translated it into Dutch. But it was important for me to admit I was wrong. I had an OEM take me out to dinner, out of the blue. This OEM called me up and said, I want to take you out to dinner. I'm like, okay. I said, are you going to come to Florida where I live, or do I have to go like into Detroit or something? It's like, no, we'll come to you. I'm like, all right. You know what? Either they're going to kill me or buy me. Neither happened. But they said, we applied your report to our advertising structure. We're saving millions of dollars a year. All I got was a steak dinner. You know, I wasn't even like, 10% profit share. But I bring this up is because what I'm seeing is dealer holding groups are thinking binary. They only think of themselves. The OEMs seem to be just thinking about them. And we need to adjust our thinking. The book says there's 4 types of people. Let's just take a minute to read that. I'm not a believer in reading slides. But there are 4 types of people. People who love to criticize the flaws of an idea. They're the prosecutor. I'm sure there are none of the politicians in Holland. These are the people who just move with the trends. White is good today. Oh no, it's black. Yes, black is better today. No, it's blue. Blue, that's the direction of the company. We're going blue. Or preacher, how dare you challenge what we've been doing for the last 20 years? You don't challenge it. It's like challenging the Bible. Don't do it. And what's interesting is that we can think of people in our organization right now. Did you think of somebody when I said always critical of a new idea? Does anybody work with what Dutch people don't criticize? Okay, great. There were some Germans in the room. Okay, great. Prosecutor. Somebody's afraid to bring up an idea because the mindset is if I bring up a new idea, I'm going to get... So like, for example, when GM came out with this was out of the blue. The dealers didn't even get any warning on this. I had to stop myself from being a prosecutor and look at the framework. So for a small dealer who's not very advanced with technology, single point, they only own one GM store, they don't own any other stores, this could be a very reasonable solution. Well, hold on, I don't have to really worry about marketing my used cars, my OEM's gonna do that. And then other people like, hold on, this whole side tells me I have to change my technology in the store. I have to use 2 sales processes, 2 different screens, depending if I sell a used GM or other. The question, when you're confronted with a new idea, should really be why does, and you fill in the blank, why does Stellantis want to do the used car? Why does GM want to do car broker? Why do the OEMs want to move to an agency model? See, we have to stop and just saying it was never done that way. And we have to ask the right questions. Now, the politician, now this is a little close to the US as a joke, but I'm going to try to explain the joke. This is the slide that General Motors showed to dealers after the previous slide. Now, the joke is the titles should have been reversed. On the left, what says what it is should be on the right. Now, if you've been in marketing meetings, do you understand most marketing people are disconnected from the politics? They just are told to make a marketing deck, sell this thing. Now, for years, GM dealers had a button on their website called Shop, Click, Drive, which still to this day is a basic payment calculator. It's not a retailing tool. GM dealers in generally hate it. They don't want it on the website, but GM requires. So GM shows this very advanced, notice this, sales, contracting, effort. This is a true retailing platform. You could even say, on paper, the most advanced retailing platform in the United States, if this happens. Now let's go to this slide. It's not, so let's fix that. Okay. It's not a replacement for Shop, Click, and Drive. No one wants to use Shop, Click, and Drive. Everyone says it was horrible. This absolutely will be a replacement for Shop, Click, Drive. How about this? We are not selling directly to the customer. Hold on, you're going to have a national website that you own and you market to and you control, and you just showed me that the consumer can go there and do the whole thing. You're not selling direct to the consumer? This is the politician mode. Dealers are afraid about the OEM stepping over the line. Great, make a slide and just lie to them. Just lie to them. This is not selling direct to the customer. No, I did see. No, it's not that. Don't look there. OEMs here in the room, don't insult the intelligence of dealers. This is a joke slide. This should never have been presented in the dealer meeting, because what it just says, everything I just told you, you should have complete concern about its truthfulness. What's the preacher? In the U.S., we have franchise laws. The courts will protect us. But the truth of the matter is, franchise dealers make compromises all the time. OEMs may change the warranty repair rate. Say, okay, we were paying this per hour, now we're paying this. We were giving you so many dollars in floor plan credits, we're cutting that down. If you do this, you'll get more inventory. That's the new one that's really working in the US. If we hide behind the legal system, which is slow, I think both dealers and OEMs lose. If it's going to mean going to court, we've already lost. Why? Because more nimble competitors can come in and potentially change the world. So the author makes a great case in an organization that's represented by this room. If we're really going to develop a modern retail framework, we have to rethink what retailing is. We have to not prosecute new ideas, because there's some merits to the agency model, but there's also some great concerns. There's some merit to going to one price, and you should know that in the US we are not a one price market. But Ford and General Motors said all EVs will be sold at one price. Overnight, boom, EV customers are different, they don't want to negotiate. Oh really? What happened to that? So, for today's presentation, I'm just going to ask you, can you be a scientist for a few hours? It's okay for you to be wrong. If the goal is how could we together, maybe just one thing from today to bring back to your OEM meeting, to bring back to your dealer holding group, where could the middle ground be? Now, one of the interesting things in the US is that the manufacturers are fascinated and obsessed with Tesla.
Dank u wel voor het luisteren naar de DCDW-podcast van Paul de Vries met de missie om de online automotive beter te maken. Vond u deze podcast interessant? Abonneer dan meteen via Spotify, Soundcloud of iTunes en deel deze podcast via LinkedIn met uw netwerk. De DCDW-podcast van Paul de Vries wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door de volgende partners: Marktplaats, Calldrip, CARMEN Automotive BDC, Findio, Used Car Controller en tweedehands.be.